Hey guys, Sublord here, back in with another top 10 video, and today I'll be counting down my top 10 favorite, emphasis on favorite, DC Multiverse action figures of 2024, brought to us by the fine folks over at McFarlane Toys, of course. And while other action figure YouTubers are crying about McFarlane Toys losing the DC license to Mattel in 2026, we are going to look back at this past year's offerings and see what were my favorites. Why do I like these figures so much to put them in a video? Stay tuned to find out. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, some ground rules. Rule number 1, it had to come out in calendar year 2024. Pretty obvious, but let's just say McFarlane Toys put out a crap ton of DC Multiverse action figures in the calendar year 2024. So much so, I don't actually have them all. Because some of them just didn't pique my interest. Some of them, it was just a money thing. And some of them, I just flat out couldn't find. The question, I'm looking at you, you cheeky bastard. That said, rule number 2, I have to have already reviewed it and or have it. Now, thankfully, every figure on this list I obviously have, but I've also provided a review for your viewing pleasure already on the channel. So if you're curious about any of them, you'll be able to find a video review there. That said, rule number 3, the final rule, anything within the McFarlane Toys 7-inch DC action figure range qualifies for this list. So that excludes Batman 66, Superpowers, and yes, even my beloved Batman animated series, because, well, let's face it, that Batman Beyond, that was a Target exclusive that trickled out into Walmart. At least that's where I got mine anyways. Probably would have landed somewhere on this list if he was a 7-inch DC Multiverse figure, but since he's not, automatically disqualified. That said, he might be eligible for top 13 action figures of 2024 overall, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Hopefully not too long now. That said, as far as anything eligible for this list, we have the DC Multiverse line proper, the DC Digital Collection, which, spoiler alert, none of those are on here, which may surprise a few of you considering what one of them was. But again, we'll get to that when we get to that. That also includes collect-to-build figures and mega figures. Granted, I didn't do a lot of collect-to-build figures from 2024. The Crisis on Infinite Earths wave was way too expensive, and I think the only collect-to-build wave I completed in 2024 was Plastic Man. We did a lot of collect-to-build wave reviews, but most of those came out the year prior, possibly even the year prior to that. So there is that. Plenty of mega figures, though. I do have some mega figures. We also have some vehicle 2-pack offerings, quote unquote, on this list, as well as page punchers. Yes, the 7-inch page punchers are eligible to be on this list, because let's face it, they're DC Multiverse figures in plastic clamshells that will cut up your fingers when you're trying to open them. That said, the animated Red Hood I looked at recently is disqualified from this list because he is not 7-inch. He is in scale with the Batman animated line, and I have him proudly displayed there. So, with that being said, why don't we cut right to the chase and get into the meat and taters of this top 10 video and kick things off with the number 10 spot. Kicking things off at the number 10 spot is my boy, good old Terry McGinnis, aka Batman Beyond from Neo Gothic. And look, I know some of you guys out there are probably scratching your heads like, really? This figure? Well, I could tell you the main reason he's at the number 10 spot is because the original choice for this spot is a glaring quality control issue that edged him out, because my top 10 does not feature any figures with quality control issues, at least glaring ones. So since good old Terry McGinnis here does not have any of those, he made it onto the list. Granted, this figure is more or less a good base for a custom Batman Beyond, if anything, because he is on that slender body McFarlane Toys has been using for a while now. They introduced it with Jonathan Kent for Future State, and they've used it several times since then. That said, I think you could easily kit bash an ideal, more classic and or traditional looking Terry McGinnis with some of these parts, and maybe the Jim Gordon Batman or Nightwing from the Titans wave. But yes, this Batman Beyond, while not perfect, lands the number 10 spot on my list. Coming in at the number 9 spot, ya poozers, is the Kilowog Megafig from the Amazon exclusive Green Lantern 2-pack featuring, well, good old Kilowog here, as well as the Target exclusive Kyle Rayner figure, in case you missed that way back when. He came with an alt hand and an extra sword to boot, so a little bit of a better offering, because not only was that a thing, but he also matched the greens of the Green Lanterns we've been getting in this line. And of course, he came with this beefy bastard Kilowog here. This figure is awesome. He comes with his lantern, his meat tenderizer construct, but sadly, no alternate hands so he can wield both at the same time. Most of my lanterns can have a construct and a lantern on them at all times, but unfortunately Kilowog here cannot, so that kind of knocks him down a bit, but I still love this figure, especially since my DC Universe Classics Collect and Connect one shattered to pieces, just like the Rolling Stones song. Granted, in its defense, it may have been a bootleg. Who's to say, though? Keeping with the theme of Green Lanterns, and coming in at the number 8 spot, we have the Collector Edition Tomar Ray, aka Green Lantern Corps, because not only could you make Tomar Ray, you could also make Abin Sur, but he's dead, so who cares about him, right? That said, unfortunately, I was not lucky enough to find the Platinum Edition Arcus Shamuk, or Green Man, which is probably a way easier name to say. Probably should have just led with that, but at the end of the day, where Kilowog fell short, good old Tomar Ray here has in spades, and that of course is accessories. We have lantern, we have alt hands, we have not exactly constructs, but blast effects from the ring. You can make it look like it's charging or shooting this big old honkin' Green Lantern energy blast here. He also comes with a really cool shield effect that I have on the Kyle Rayner from Darkest Night of all things. So yes, this Green Lantern is the complete package and was a step in the right direction for the Collector Edition figures, if I do say so myself. Keeping with the theme of Collector's Edition releases, at the number 7 spot, we have the Grid from Forever Evil. This is the standard edition version of Grid, not the Platinum Edition, which to me looked like a giant evil booger. That said, I still have that available for some kind of trade if anyone's interested, but if nobody is, I'll just hold on to it. I mean, Grid is a cool looking character. I mean, he's some big Terminator, cyborg, monster, zombie looking guy, so that fits right in the Spawn as far as I'm concerned, which, I'm going to say it right now, McFarlane Toys' strong suit is gnarly looking robots and big scary monsters, and this guy definitely fits that bill. Probably why I like him so much. I mean, you can't go wrong with a giant zombie cyborg with a gun arm, can ya? I don't think so. Coming in at the number 6 spot is the Target exclusive gold label Metallo. Now, I know this wasn't the most popular figure amidst DC Multiverse collectors this past year, but second to Doomsday, Metallo is one of my favorite Superman villains of all time, despite the fact he may be reusing some parts, if not a lot of parts, from Superman's arch nemesis Lex Luthor. I wanted a smaller Metallo to the DC Universe Classics Collect and Connect figure I already have, and the fine folks over at McFarlane Toys gave me just that. Whether it looks like he's wearing Lex Luthor's power suit is irrelevant to me, because I actually don't have the new 52 Lex Luthor everyone's been comparing this guy to As of the time I'm recording this video, that is, so stay tuned for a future review of that maybe, but yes. Despite its flaws, I still quite like this Metallo figure. I think the head sculpt could have been a little bit more detailed, though. It seems cartoony compared to the rest of him, at least to me. Before we continue, since we have reached the halfway point of my top 10 DC Multiverse action figures of 2024 video, we of course need to discuss the top honor, and that is going to be none other than the armored Azrael Batman from Knight's End. And for those of you who are new to the channel, the main reason this guy is an honorable mention instead of being on the top 10 itself is because mine has an effed up ankle. He has 2 left ankle pieces, particularly the piece that's supposed to be on the inside of the foot, instead of, well, a right one. And that totally kills my buzz when it comes to McFarlane Toys figures in general. I do not care for sculpted ankle joints or wrist joints because the potential to get the wrong piece is so high because it's so small. It's just not ideal. And it sucks that this figure was so hard to find that I still have this issue to this day. I was keeping my fingers crossed that maybe, just maybe, we'd come across the blue version, which was a platinum chase, and I know that seems like a long shot, but I've gotten several platinum chases here on the channel, so it would have been nice if that one just popped up out of the blue, no pun intended, but unfortunately it didn't, leaving my boy Jean-Paul Valley here as the sole honorable mention from my top 10 DC Multiverse action figures of 2024. Most disappointing figure of the year for sure. I don't think he's the worst, though. The worst, we'll talk about that in another video. Coming in at the number 5 spot is another prime example of why McFarlane Toys kills it with gnarly looking robots, and that of course is going to be none other than the Page Punchers Ghosts of Krypton Brainiac. This is of course the standard edition, which is more like a Brainiac drone. I believe the Platinum is more like actual Brainiac, but I like this version a little more because, well, first and foremost, he's got a skeleton head, yeah, so that always does it for me personally, but I like the silver. I know the other one glows in the dark, and that's cool and fun and all. We got a glow-in-the-dark figure coming up, actually, but this guy, I don't know, he just does something for me. I don't want to say it makes me feel nostalgic or anything like that, because that'd be kind of weird for something from a few years ago, but in 2020, they released a figure in the Warhammer line called the Necron, or Necrin, or Nec-something Warrior, and this guy reminds me of that figure quite a bit, not only in construction, but posability. Really solid, really sturdy, despite a rather gangly design. This figure is just fun to mess around with. You can swap the arm attachments out in the various portholes throughout the body, and if you got a bunch of them, you can make them all look unique, and that, my friends, is marketing. Coming in at the number 4 spot, the aforementioned glow-in-the-dark feature I just talked about during Brainiac's segment of this video. We of course have the Kryptonite Doomsday Mega Fig, because yes, his spikes glow in the dark. Granted, I didn't know that when I recorded the review. I kind of assumed they did, but I mostly thought it was black light reflective plastic, but no. He does in fact glow in the dark, so that is pretty cool, and gave him a little bit of an edge against Brainiac. That, and compared to the Doomsday Megafig from the Doomsday vs. Superman Target exclusive 2-pack, this guy does fix some of the quality control issues I had with that figure, particularly with the looseness. This guy is not nearly as loose as that other Doomsday. Granted, it's not as tight as I would like, so he doesn't rank a little tiny bit higher, but the issues he does fix quite well, and not for nothing, he also reminds me of Doomsday from the DC Animated Universe, and since I'm on a DC Animated Universe kick as of late, that gives him some bonus points too. Also, I think we can all agree that the hair this guy is rocking is better than the bunny ears ponytail from the 2-pack version. Coming in at the number 3 spot is the Amazon exclusive gold label. Not sure if it's collector edition or not, but we have the man, the myth, the legend, the main man in fact, good old Lobo, with his trusty Space Hawk and his pet dog, of course, who is a bit of a commodity amidst Lobo releases because not a lot of them include him, so that's a nice little bonus, as well as, of course, the Space Hog itself, the chain, the extra head, the impractical guitar, but it looks badass, so I'll let it slide, as well as the nice display base, so you can properly display Lobo atop his Space Hog without it toppling over. And while this is essentially a reissue, I didn't get to talk about the original Lobo figure from a few years ago because I got him right after I finished shooting my top 10 DC Multiverse Figures video for whatever year that was. So I figured, why not put this guy roughly around the spot I would have put that one, but maybe a spot or two higher because he does a couple of things better. Not only does he feel a little bit more like the complete package, but the skin tone on the arms is a closer match to the rest of him, and that was really the main issue with the previous release. That and the hands were super rigid on that version, while on this one, they're nice and soft, they're easy to pop out, so you don't jerk up the ball hinge like you do down mine. And his one foot wasn't glued in place because his shin guards weren't applied haphazardly, so good things all around. Still a little bad, because it does have some typical McFarlane Toys looseness, but I think we're all used to that at this point. Maybe that's why they lost the license. I don't know. Coming in at the number 2 spot is a character that is no stranger to my top favorite action figure list videos. That, of course, is going to be none other than the man, the myth, the legend, the one who broke the bat, you guessed it, good old Burn. That's right, I had to do the stupid voice at least once, but yes, the Bane Megafig from the Nightfall 2-pack with a very, and I mean very, beat to shit Batman. That said, much like the Lobo and Kryptonite Doomsday that came before him, this Bane takes the issues I have with the previously released Megafig, which I do still love. He was on my top 13 favorite action figures of whatever calendar year he came out video, and I have no regrets putting him there, but this figure takes the issues I had with that figure and omits them almost completely. We have a much better contrast on the face of the mask. We ditched the harness and the extra tubers and the tank on the back for just a lone tube to really sell that this is the Nightfall look for the character. We have swappable fist hands as well as open hands so we can actually physically break the bat. However, the only issue he doesn't solve is the lack of torso articulation. He's still a bit of a pain in the butt to physically break the bat, but at the end of the day, it's a very classic looking Bane and is not going to set you back nearly as much as the Collect and Connect figure from the fine folks over at Mattel. And my number 1 DC Multiverse action figure, or in this case, action figures of 2024 from the fine folks over at McFarlane Toys, not only because they made the damn thing, but it was exclusive to their online web store, is gonna be none other than good old Jonah Hex and the General. I believe this was a collector's edition set, and boy oh boy did it actually feel like a collector's edition set. Not only did you get Jonah Hex with his horse, but you got a slew of accessories to go with said Jonah Hex figure and his horse. You get his sword, you get his shotgun, 2 pistols. What is this? Is the gun mandate over? I wouldn't say that, but we got guns with this guy. That's a plus. He also has a knife, a tomahawk, interchangeable belts, a soft goods duster, and enough new tooling to stand out amidst your DC Multiverse collection. I heard he uses some of the movie Two-Face parts from the Dark Knight wave. the Dark Knight collectible Bane. I said I was only going to do it once, but I couldn't help myself, because that is actually the Bane that does that. But you know what I mean. The Nolan Two-Face body, but hey, if the shoe fits, wear it. And in this case, the cowboy boot definitely fits, and Jonah Hex is the one wearing it. I love this figure. Jonah Hex, if you didn't know, one of my favorite DC characters of all time. There's a really awesome animated short with him in it where he takes out, I think it's a prostitute and like a bunch of dudes at a bar. It's awesome. I love it. But this figure really reignited my love for the character, and I can't thank the fine folks over at McFarlane Toys enough for doing a damn good job. A really, really excellent job with this release. They went above and beyond with this one. He is the complete package, kind of like the Lobo, kind of like the Bane, but even more so in my opinion. I just think they knocked this one out of the park. I'm surprised they did as good a job as they did on this guy. He came out stellar, and that is why he is my number one DC Multiverse action figure of 2024. And there you have it, my top 10 favorite DC Multiverse action figures of 2024, brought to us by the fine folks over at McFarlane Toys. Not so fine folks if you're referring to my poor Knight's End armored Azrael Batman. That said, if anyone can help me out with fixing his foot, I would greatly appreciate that, because I really want to like that figure more than I do, but that ankle is killing me. It really is. Along with the platinum chases, the fidgetal stuff, the page punchers. There's too much DC from McFarlane Toys, and I can't help but feel that that's why they lost the license to Mattel in the first place. Too many exclusives, too many chases, too much quality control, issues, and maybe, just maybe, since Mattel's a bigger company, they placed a larger bid. I mean, of course Warner Bros. Is going to take the money over the quality or quantity of product. That's what matters at the end of the day, people. Money talks, and clearly Mattel had more money, or at least maybe something better in the eyes of Warner Brothers, which, judging by how they make movies nowadays, really doesn't say much, does it? So fingers crossed that Mattel can come through with that. I'm hopeful because I love the Masterverse line. Stay tuned for a top 10 Masterverse figures of 2024. Ooh. That's right, we're doing lots of top 10s this year from last year. Don't judge me. But that said, I hope you guys enjoyed my top 10 DC Multiverse figures of 2024. Let me know what yours were in the comments below. And did you like my list? Did you hate my list? Do I care? Not really, but I'm kind of curious. As long as you're not going to be a jerk about it. And until next time, catch you guys later.